Hello and welcome back. Yes, this video we're going to be taking you through all the little fiddly bits, i.e. The burner cans, undercarriage, and we'll be doing paint distortion on the actual fuel tanks. So it is going to be quite a compact video. Now, burner cans. Now what I'm doing here is I'm literally saving myself a lot of time by sticking all of them on a little lolly stick with blue tack, and then I can proceed to actually paint it with a primer. This being a Tamiya, I think it was a NATO black I used in the end because that was all I had left. So it was a simple case of just going over it with an extremely dark colour because it was going to be painted white or distorted white. Now this I'm using a Hataka's Insignia white. It's not, let's say, white per se. It's got a slight tinge of, say, buff to it, so it's not, you know, an exact brilliant white, which will work dividends for you because when you look inside a burner can of an F4 Phantom, yes, it can be white, but then again it's got all that other muck, browns and blacks and all that kind of yucky stuff. Now moving on to the actual air brakes. Now I've actually painted these white because they are going to be red. Yeah, you try spraying red paint on black, it is an absolute pain and it will take you about 4 or 5 years. No, only joking, but no, that's what I've used. So metallizers, a dark iron. Now this is a Mr. Hobby buffable paint. Yeah, and be careful with this because it can get absolutely everywhere, and that is why I use a designated set of paintbrushes. Now it's quite simple and easy to use. You just load up a paintbrush and then with a single brush stroke you just pop it on, well, try and make it a signal one, and just let the paint go all into the nooks and crannies. Points to note on this type of paint, it does evaporate very quickly, so if you've got your pot open like that, just make sure you know where the paint's going first, although it does sound a bit silly, but it will evaporate and next thing you know you'll have an empty pot. So now that was all dry and it doesn't take that long, it was time to buff it. Now I use the paintbrush that I actually applied the actual paint to. It does stop paint contamination, and simply all you do is you buff it with the actual paintbrush. Go in different directions, and what you'll see is the uppermost or the more raised parts will actually get more of the buffing and the recessed parts won't so much, what gives you a nice different contrast between the actual two. And yeah, I think it works out pretty well. So once all done, it was time to attach all 4 of the parts to the burner can base. So simple case of bit of super glue, pop it on and let it dry. It's as simple as that. I will give Meng the due on this one. The parts do fit really well. There are a slight gap, but it's very slight, and if I'm honest with you, it's not noticeable at all. So just go for it and just stick them in and you'll have a nice set of burner cans. Now they were done and ready to be fitted to the kit, it was time to paint the doors. Now, air brake doors, the undercarriage doors and all the rest of it, yeah, there are quite a few of them, but obviously they need to be done. Now, point to note is when you're actually spraying this, just make sure that you are painting the right colour for the right doors. The last thing you want to do is to paint them and you've painted a door green where it's supposed to be grey. I've never done that in my entire life. Yes, I lie like a cheap watch. And now for something a little bit more creative. The fuel tanks. Now for this I'm going to be using quite a bit of different stuff. Scratch and heavy chipping from Meng ammo. Lovely fluid and it works really well. Also on top of that I'm going to be using XF81 dark green from Tamiya and also XF62 olive drab. Now first off, scratch effects. Now as this is a clear fluid and you're not going to see anything, it's a simple case of just putting some thin coats over the areas which you want to actually distort. Now with this, the more you put on, the more it's going to come off. So first off, the dark green. Again, it is very light coats because what you don't want to do is put the actual chipping fluid underneath in a position where it ain't going to come off. So it is light coats. Now once you've done that, make sure it is properly dry and then you can go in with some warm water and whatever you're going to chip it with. So it's that simple. And all you do is you apply the water. Now once the water is on, it will go through very slowly-ish through the actual acrylic paint and react to the actual chipping fluid underneath. Now like I said, yeah, I put a little bit too much on and it actually came out looking like a heavy chipping. So just be sparing, and once you actually do take it off, just be a little bit more careful. Fortunately I wasn't. However, the result that I got, I think, yeah, it looks alright, not too bad. But just bearing in mind, this is under your own taste. You can take as much or as little off as you want. It is entirely up to you, because I can guarantee when you look at photos of the real thing, you'll see every time it will be different. Now another technique that I do use is I use a old airbrush needle, or you could use a cocktail stick if you so wish, and just put in little dots, little divots all over, and then apply the water. Again, the water will go through the actual holes into the chipping fluid, and if you're really careful, this is the actual effect that you're after. Small chips and small scratches. So with that, it is a case of just going over again with the dark green, just making sure that you've got everything covered with the paint. So once that was done, I sprayed it with the heavy chipping and then went straight on to painting it with the olive drab. Now slightly a little bit more heavier coat, so you've basically got, yeah, a starker contrast. So with the two greens, you can just, yeah, you can play with it as much as you want. Now again, using water, warmish water with a bigger brush, you're just doing light brush strokes all over until the actual chipping fluid reacts with the paint. Now hopefully now you can see all the distorted paint, it's coming away, and again you can just do as much or as little as you want, and that is pretty much the end result. Uneven, looks a bit iffy, but that is exactly what you want. Now once that was dry, all I went is got a sort of like a really sort of like worn out sponge, basically making it all nice and smooth and ready for the actual weathering process. So once that was done, I was on to the actual wheels, and this is a quick way of actually doing the actual rims. Now you can get a very cheap and cheerful stencil from your stationery shop and place it over the right aperture, or the nearest aperture that you can find, spray it, take it away, and you're left with a nice even rim. Anyhow, it is a case of rinse and repeat. But using black grey, you can actually use this to make your wheels a little bit more realistic. Now only for the actual surface itself that's actually going to touch the actual floor, you actually spray the black grey, so you've got a tonal variation. Just gives that a little bit more of, you know, a hint of realism. So once that was done, it was a simple case of gluing everything together and sticking it on the main kit. Right then, ladies and gents, that is it. She's got her legs on, and what a nice pair of legs she's got. And it is all ready for the next stage, will be the weathering and weapons. Now, please join me for that video, which will be coming very, very soon. And again, thank you very much for all your support and your views. It is very much appreciated. So, see you soon.